claim the lives of many people. And if you manage to make it past that curve without spinning out like you hit a banana in Mario Kart, then you're gonna come to the Ghost Boy Bridge, where you can throw a coin off the bridge into the stream and a ghost boy will huck it back right at your face. Well, we should get more of those ghost boys out there. Throw them out into the ocean. They should be throwing garbage back at people. At number 9, we have Skipper's Canyon Road in New Zealand. Now for this list, I'm kind of reaching into two categories. The first one being roads that are super haunted and have all sorts of ghouls running around trying to eat your face and steal your spark plug. And the second being roads that are so dangerous they're pretty much cursed because you have a good chance of dying while you're driving on them. And this one is the latter. Skipper's Road is one of the most dangerous roads on the planet. It's constantly falling apart with potholes that are big enough to fit a person into them. It's extremely narrow. There are sections of this road that are so tight 2 cars can't pass each other. If you meet another car, it's a game of chicken of who's gonna back up first. There's almost zero safety railings, and on top of this, the road is carved into the side of a mountain. At number 8, we have Route 2A in Maine. So the next one is the best of both worlds. It's an extremely dangerous road with ghosts running amok. This road has been the end of many truckers. The roads get so icy and the lack of lights and railings mean you could drive right off into a ditch. There have been sightings of a ghost lady who walks up and down the highway begging for someone to help save her husband. At number 7, we have Patio Polo Paradakaki Road in Greece. Alright, the next one we're going to head over to the country where the gods of Olympus themselves were conceived. This road in Greece is something you all should avoid unless you have the craving to meet a semi at 50 miles an hour head on. This road has a lot of crap to deal with. First, there's pretty much everything on it. Cars, trucks, semis, people, animals. It's a giant death fiesta. Second, there's a massive elevation change, around 500 meters. This is gonna pop the hell out of your ears. Next, there's no road markings, no lines, no crosswalks. People driving at night often drive off the road to their death. And finally, the road is in as bad condition as an NFL running back's brain after a 14-year career. At number 6, we have Mona Lisa Drive in New Orleans. Alright, we have a bit of an urban legend on this one. So legend has it that there was this beautiful girl who fell in love with a sailor boy, and then the two started having premarital sex. My God, who would do such a thing? The young girl's father then killed her for this floozy behavior, and now she walks up and down the road haunting young couples. Jealous much? At number 5, we have Luxor Al Hurghada Road in Egypt. Now we're gonna jet all the way over to Egypt and go through the checklist of problems that this road has with it. So the Luxor Al Hurghada Road is poorly maintained, which is kind of a given if you want to make it onto this list. On top of that, there's some stretches that are in some pretty busy cities, but then they go into some very remote places. Which means if anything happened to your car, you would be stuck baking in an Egyptian desert. And that's going to be in the middle of nowhere where someone's probably not going to come help you. And if dying from dehydration in a sandy wasteland wasn't enough, you could also come in contact with terrorists and bandits who are trying to rob you for everything you're worth. Now that has to be everything, right? But wait, there's more! So let's say you have the bright idea of driving at night. So if your car breaks down, you won't be stuck in the sun, and so the bandits won't see you. Well, this is a terrible idea, because people will often drive this road with no headlights because they're afraid of getting hijacked, which means the chances of you having a head-on collision go up about tenfold. At number 4, we have Shades of Death Road, New Jersey. I don't think you need any more warnings. The road is called Shades of Death. That's like if there was a dog named Castrator because he bit off people's balls. There's a bunch of rumors as to how this lovely road in New Jersey got its wonderful name. Some people say it's because the road is just dangerous and people crash there a lot. Other people say that bandits would hide there and murder people for sport and loot. I even heard that there was a malaria outbreak in a village next to the road. So maybe next time you want to drive down this road, you should just take the long way around instead of taking it, unless you want mosquito herpes. Maybe next time instead of taking this road, just take the long way around, unless you're keen on getting mosquito herpes. At number 3, we have the Tuen Mun Road, Hong Kong. Really, the surprising thing about this road is it's a pretty nice road. It was built by the British and has been really well maintained. Maybe the road is just so perfect that it drives people crazy and they jump out of their cars when they're on the highway. Or is it a hot spot for earthquakes and other natural disasters? No, it's actually much creepier than that. The Tuen Mun Road is a hot spot for ghost sightings. People driving will see ghosts just pop out like whack-a-mole. Ghosts appear out of nowhere and then scare the hell out of unsuspecting drivers. This will cause people to freak out and crash into each other. The ghosts on the bridge are literally directing traffic into each other. They're probably just lonely and they want more ghost friends to hang out with. They're like, hey, you're dead now, I'm dead, let's be friends and play this game called Cargo Smash Smash. At number 2 we have Screaming Tunnel, Niagara, Ontario. Now this place sounds like a great date spot. So the legend of the Screaming Tunnel goes, if you're driving through and you decide to light a match, maybe you're smoking a cigar, or you're trying to impersonate Scarface, well, you're in for a wonderful surprise. The match will go out and then you'll be welcomed by the scream of a girl who is being murdered. Yeah, no thanks. I'm gonna continue my life screamless. The only screams I want to hear is when Whitney Houston hits the high notes in I Will Always Love You. At number 1, you have the Stock Bridge Bypass. Alright, we're gonna top off this list with something that's pretty spooky if I do say so myself. The Stock Bridge Bypass death tolls only around 25 people. Now that might not seem like a lot. Many of the roads on this list have killed way more people. You're probably wondering, Che, why did you pick this for the number 1 spot? Well, many people on this road have died not in a car crash, but they were found dead in their car. Some of the drivers seem like they veered off the road out of nowhere. So what's causing these spooky deaths? Well, it could be the ghost monk who is said to walk up and down the road attacking people. It couldn't just be a regular ghost. It had to be a monk ghost. Like he might know kung fu. I don't know what kind of monk he is. He might have a martial arts spirit, or spirit martial art, some sort of ghost fighting thing. Or the reason the people could be dying is because they're distracted by the laughs of ghostly children that will creep out of nowhere even when there's no children around. Yeah, ghost kids always moves you up the list.
Starting off at number 10 now, we have Bloodspoint Road. This road in Illinois has a history involving murders, accidents, suicides, and even witchcraft. A lot of this seems to focus around the bridge at the end of the road. Apparently, if you follow it along towards the cemetery there at the end, you'll find the bridge above the train tracks. It's said that a school bus full of children once flew off the side of the bridge, killing all of the passengers on board. Now they say this tragedy manifests itself today by cars being pushed across the bridge even when parked in neutral, whistling coming from the graveyard, and a traffic light that always changes location. At number 9 now, we have the Dark Hedges. You can find this road in County Antrim, Northern Ireland. It's often been described as hauntingly beautiful, a country road lined with old twisted beech trees. People say there's an old ghostly figure of a woman in a dress who glides along the road and then disappears when she passes the last beech tree. They say she's the ghost of a maid from the nearby manor who died in mysterious circumstances hundreds of years ago, or perhaps a wandering spirit from the nearby abandoned graveyard. Next up at number 8 now, we have Sweet Hollow Road. This one is steeped in folklore. The road is found in Huntington, New York, and leads to the equally talked about Mount Misery Road. That's actually its real name. The stories from this place date back hundreds of years. Some people say that Native American tribes there considered it to be a cursed area. The winding road is nearby to an old burned down mental asylum from the 1700s, and some say the tormented spirits from there will often wander out into the road and terrify motorists at night. There's also the legend of the woman who died in a terrible car crash many years ago. Apparently, if you park your car under the overpass there and leave it in neutral, her ghostly hands will push your car up the hill. A strong ghost, I guess, the best kind. Okay, next up at number 7 now, we have Zombie Road. Now that's not its real name, that really would be terrifying. It's actually called Lawler Ford Road and winds on for about 2 miles in the thick woods of Missouri. The road is closed to the public half an hour after the sun goes down. Some people say that's actually for your own protection. The road runs near the largest Native American burial mound in America. People say their spirits haunt the road at night, as well as the Confederate soldiers from the Civil War. The trail is completely black at night. There's no lights because you're not actually supposed to be there. This hasn't stopped people though over the years. Every year, dozens of people get tickets there for trespassing. The tickets even say Zombie Road on them. So yeah, maybe there is some truth to the whole thing. Coming at number 6 now, we have Shades of Death Road. Now this one really is the name of this road. Shades of Death Road runs through Warren County, New Jersey along Ghost Lake. Again, that's its real name. The road is famous for sightings of the prom girl. The story goes that years ago, a car of teenagers were driving down the road after a prom. The road was slippery that night, and on one of the winding turns, the driver lost control of the car and crashed into a ditch. A girl died, and people say that even now on a slippery dark night, you can see the girl standing by the side of the road, still wearing her torn up prom dress. Next up at number 5 now, we have Highway 666. You've heard of Route 66, right? Well, that famous road has another road that branches off at its 6th junction called Highway
I want to quickly share what for me has been a hugely positive habit, and that's speaking to a therapist using BetterHelp. I've spoken in the past pretty openly about how I really struggled in my second year of
666. As you might expect, many people have reported strange happenings on that road. There have been reports of flaming trucks that speed towards motorists, forcing them off the road and then just disappearing into thin air. There's been so many crashes on this road that people attribute to the satanic name that its name was actually changed in 2003 to Route 491. Some say that wasn't enough though, and that the curse still remains. And next up at number 4 now, we have Clinton Road. This road lies not too far from New York, and many people are aware of the creepy stories from people who have traveled it at night. It cuts through 10 miles of New Jersey, and some say it's actually the scariest road in America. Stories involve the usual ghosts and satanic cults, but also unique ones such as the Jersey Devil, who people say stalks the old road there. There's also the story of the black truck. The vehicle apparently pulls up behind people at night, flashes its lights, and then disappears into the darkness without a trace. Add to that the stories of UFOs, lights on the nearby water, and snow in July, and it's no surprise this road is a bit of a hotspot for paranormal investigators. Next up at number 3 now, we have the A229. This road in southeast England attracts paranormal investigators for one famous story, the woman in white. Drivers have reported seeing a woman in a white dress appearing in front of their car and then just vanishing as they pass through her. Locals say it's the ghost of a woman called Judith Langham, who was tragically knocked down on the road on her wedding day in 1965. Next up at number 2 now, we have Boy Scout Lane. Sounds pretty innocent, right? Well, this rural road in Wisconsin has some less than innocent stories attached to it. According to local legend, it gets its name from a tragedy that happened there years ago when a troop of Boy Scouts died there on a camping trip in the 1950s. Locals say the boys' ghosts now haunt that lane. If you go there one day to check it out, just be warned that the road is actually a dead end with no way out. Very fitting for a road with such a paranormal past. And finally, number 1 now, we have the street with no name. In the west side of Sydney, Australia, lies the street with no name. Locals say it has an evil air to it at night, with many people reporting an eerie presence. There's been stories of dogs and small children behaving very strangely there. Paranormal investigators say this is because they are less inhibited in their connection to the spirit world. All of this may be because of some of the horrific crimes that have taken place there over the years. Multiple murders and bodies being dumped in the nearby water. Whatever it is, it keeps horror tourists coming back to the street with no name.
Number 10. Belgian Tunnel in Switzerland. This tunnel is a part of the A2 motorway and is supposedly haunted by the ghost of an old woman dressed in all white. The story goes that an old woman dressed in white hitchhikes along this road. She seems to appear out of nowhere and sometimes even speaks to the drivers. If she was picked up from the side of the road, she would disappear from the car while the driver drove through the tunnel. A reported sighting from 2 women saw this figure and picked her up off the side of the street. She warned them something bad was going to happen, then she vanished. Ghosted them, you could say. Number 9. A75 Kinmount Straight in Scotland. This highway is reportedly the most haunted in Scotland, with stories varying on what phantom things people see. Some see old women or cars they could hit before they disappear. Others saw pedestrians they thought they had hit, but when they got out of the car, there was no one to be found. One man, while driving, was stopped cold with what he thought was a parade of people, and then they just weren't there when he talked to other people. Many people have chills at the thought of driving on this road. An infamous and unusual sighting on this road was made by Derek and Norman Ferguson in 1962, where they witnessed great cats and other various creatures, as well as a phantom furniture van. And, okay, I get it if the cats and furniture van don't sound as scary as other things, but for those to be things that people reported as phantom and disappearing is what I find spooky about it, alright? Like, I'll be avoiding that road in Scotland. Thank you very much. Number 8. The Screaming Tunnel in Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada. This one has so much notoriety that it was used in the filming of a Stephen King adaptation. And no, not It or It 2, but The Dead Zone. So, legend has it that if you stand in the tunnel and light a match, it will go out. Then you'll hear the screams of a dying girl. The dying girl supposedly is from a local story that has a few different versions. Story goes, she lived in a farmhouse on the south side of the tunnel, and one night her house caught fire. She ran away from her house with her clothes still on fire and made it all the way to the tunnel before she fell to the ground and died. So this is a road that maybe you will drive on, but just keep going through the tunnel, don't get out, no need to push your luck, just keep pushing on. Number 7. Casablanca Tunnel in Indonesia. This underpass in East Jakarta, Indonesia, is well known as an urban legend place by locals who say it was once a mass grave. On top of that, it has some of the highest amounts of reports of hauntings in all of the tunnels in Indonesia. Many of these sightings are of a Pontianak. To keep us all on the same page, a Pontianak is a female vampiric ghost in Indonesian mythology. They are said to be the spirits of women who died while pregnant. Back to the tunnel, some drivers claim to see this ghost or Pontianak in white clothes waving at them. Getting closer, they could see it was a wrinkled old woman with one eye hanging out of its socket. This woman, apparently, was the victim of a horrible crime by criminals done long before the underpass was built, and still haunts the tunnel. Another being haunting the tunnel? On full moons, it is rumored that there's a spirit of a hanged man at the entrance of the tunnel. Now, that's the third creepy tunnel I've talked about so far, so be wary of tunnels is what I'm taking out of this, honestly. Number 6, A616 Stockbridge Bypass in the United Kingdom. This bypass passes through quaint countryside, but it is well known for being one of the deadliest and most haunted places in the UK. When builders were building the road, starting in 1987, workers at the site had chilling experiences. First, there were strange sounds. Banging sounds not typical to the area, voices, and the laughter of kids. Then, sightings of apparitions. 2 site security guards named Stephen Brooks and David Goldthorpe spotted children playing and dancing in the construction site while they were on patrol. Getting closer, they saw the kids were in old-fashioned clothing and not paying them any mind. But when the guards were getting close enough to talk to the children, they apparently just blinked out of existence. No mark in the mud, no evidence, nada. Another time, on the same bypass, there was a monk in a robe that dissipated when drivers would pass through, and there were other specters causing, cars to veer. All of these paranormal experiences were repeated with more frequent sightings. This stretch of road has an unusually high concentration of traffic accidents. Maybe it's the heavy traffic, or maybe the ghosts. On to number 5, Devil's Washbowl Road, United States. When I think of Vermont, I think of skiing. But if you are familiar with the story of a 1971 dance in Northfield, you may think Pigman. On a stretch of the Devil's Washbowl Road, a pigman is rumored to run across the laneways. It was described in its first sighting as between 5'5" and 6 feet, naked and covered in white hair, walking on 2 legs with the face of a pig. The story goes that a fair-haired boy who lived on Darby Farm in the city went missing around the same time as Pigman sightings started. There's no sure agreement on whether or not he was eaten by Pigman or became Pigman, but regardless, cats and dogs went missing, so this haunted road is one to be avoided for sure. Number 4, Clinton Road in the United States. This road in New Jersey's folklore has everything. Sightings of ghosts.
It's 2023 and the real estate market has absolutely shifted.
The housing market has entered a recession.
Some real estate agencies are already seeing prices drop. By the way, Zillow's latest market report found that nationally, home values are plunging.
Yet I've been able to teach thousands of students on how they can get incomes of $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 a month by using my proven techniques on how to find deeply discounted real estate and match those contracts with buyers. Now guys, my system doesn't require you to have a real estate license, credentials, or even a lot of cash. In fact, you can lock up a house with as little as $10 earnest deposit and flip that contract and make tens of thousands of dollars. Click the link below, watch the case study, and come join the nation's #1 community of wholesalers and plug into the action.
Did you know there's a secret strategy that savvy real estate investors use to generate massive profits and build long-term cash flow simultaneously? It's how I've built a 7-figure real estate business, and I'm teaching other people how to do it too. Imagine having the power to generate impressive profits while building a sustainable cash flow system that keeps growing. It may sound too good to be true, but trust me, it's not. In fact, it's completely attainable when you put this tried and true formula into action. Guys, here's the deal. Many real estate investors are making very critical mistakes when it comes to securing high equity deals. It's holding them back from reaching their full potential, which is why I'm here. I can teach you how to sidestep those mistakes and elevate your real estate investing business to new heights. So what is it that separates successful 7-figure real estate investors from struggling wholesalers, rehabbers, and new investors? It's not luck or some mysterious talent. There's a proven 4-step system that will empower you to grab deals that your competition isn't savvy enough to even understand. It's a system that's allowed me to generate massive profits while building long-term cash flow, and I'm confident it'll do the same for you. Why? Because I have 417 students that have already been doing it for the past 3 years. And right now, I'm opening up the gates to take on even more people who are serious about taking their real estate investing business to the next level. Click below and watch a free case study that will get you started on this journey.
Ghosts, a kind of hellhound, gatherings of witches, Satanists, and the Ku Klux Klan, aka everything you want to avoid. Rumor has it, professional killers dispose of bodies in the surrounding woods. There's even one reported case of this legitimately happening. Still thinking of driving around this one? How about you go near the Clinton Reservoir, near the bridge, and near a sharp Dead Man's Curve, and toss a coin into the water. Legend says a boy will toss it back. Maybe you'll see his reflection or be pelted with coins too. That's what other stories say. There are other places in New Jersey to drive, so I recommend you stick to the shore. Was my bad accent? You're welcome. On to number 3, Riverdale Road in United States. Located in Thornton, Colorado, Riverdale Road has even more lore attached to it than the previous Clinton Road I just talked about. To start, it has what people call the Gates of Hell. Apparently, the man who built these gates lost his mind when they were finished and burnt his mansion with his whole family inside. Never caught, never put on trial. Because of this, thrill seekers are drawn to the rusty gates, hoping to see the ghost of his wife, a lady in white. Driving by, she may appear in your rearview mirror. Or, driving by, you may feel the ghost of an angry jogger hitting your car. This ghost is of a jogger who was hit on Riverdale Road and didn't make it. If you walk the road on foot, you may hear a heart-beating footsteps that are attributed to this man. If that's not enough for you to steer clear of Riverdale Road, you may be distracted on some nights on a full moon by ghosts hanging from cottonwood trees that line the street. Not enough then? There's a spirit of a young boy that smears bloody handprints on every street sign that he walks past. That spirit of the young boy, it's because he was hit by a car on the way to school. Once the morning comes though, the bloody handprints, all gone. Lastly, you could be driving down Riverdale Road, minding the blind corners that can make it a little more dangerous, and you decide to offer a ride to a hitchhiker you spotted on the side of the road. But once you pull over, they disappear. And guess what? Surprise, one more. A phantom Camaro with one working headlight pulls up behind you, and it's the ghost of a driver from the 70s who tested their need for speed and ended up in a fatal crash. Those are all the phantom things on that Colorado strip of road. So Colorado drivers or those passing through, just take another road and not the one sharing a name with the TV adaptation of Archie comics. On to number 2, Mount Misery Road and Sweet Hollow Road in the United States. Now this one's a 2-for-1, located in New York nonetheless. Both Mount Misery and Sweet Hollow roads are in West Hills County Park in the town of Huntington. Locals say there are many urban legends associated with the area, though these two droves drive right through them. Strange lights appearing on the road, livestock disappearances, mysterious creatures in the woods are all said to be a list of reasons indigenous groups initially sold the land to settlers. Other sightings on these roads are reported to be Mothman sightings, which, if you are not familiar, is a tall humanoid figure with wings on its back, vaguely resembling a moth, and it has stories all over. Another is the legend of Mary's grave, the grave of a woman who murdered her husband and children. Supposedly, she's buried in the woods off Mount Misery Road. On her tombstone, there's a birth date, but no death date, and if you shine a flashlight on her tombstone at night, her face appears. See, my nan's name is Mary, and I like her face, so I'll think I'll avoid that road and take a trip to my nan's house instead for some tea and cookies. On to number 1, Tuen Mun Road in Hong Kong. This congested highway was built in 1977, with numerous crashes happening over the years. This has been credited to both poor road design and the ghost sightings rumored to happen. According to folklore, the ghosts of previous crashes appear in front of a driver or in the middle of the road. These ghosts cause the drivers to swerve and avoid hitting who they think is a person, which then causes more accidents and crashes to happen on the already congested and accident-prone highway. An example of this, in 2003, a bus had a crash and 21 people were killed. Some say they still see the spirits walking around the area.
Starting off this countdown, we have the face print. So this girl and her family was road tripping from Portland, Oregon to the Northwest Territories in Canada to visit her grandparents. After driving for quite some time, they stopped at a campground to sleep in the van. She was fast asleep in the passenger seat when she heard strange footsteps coming from outside her van. She woke up and looked out the window but couldn't see anything, so went back to sleep. But the next day, she was horrified. When she woke up, she glanced out the window and saw a full face print on it. Someone had been peering in, watching them sleep during the night. Yep, that's a note for me. In our 9th spot, we have the road that doesn't exist. And if you guys are liking this video so far, then why don't you give it a big thumbs up, because it really helps us out. This story was shared by Reddit user Team Macon7. Several years ago, she and her friends decided to go on a road trip to visit their mutual friend at her university. They printed off detailed directions, and the trip was only supposed to take 3 hours. But at one point, the directions took them through a sketchy path in the woods, and they were driving through this forest area for about an hour. By then, it was already past 3 hours, and they should have arrived there already. But finally, 4.5 hours later, they arrived at their friend's place. They enjoyed the weekend there, and a couple months later, they decided to go back and visit. So they got their directions and followed the exact same route that they did before, except they never encountered this long path through the woods. It's like all of a sudden the road just disappeared. I mean, it could just be that they took a wrong turn, but they are insistent that both times they followed the directions accurately. Somehow, a road just disappeared. Coming in at number 8, we have the gas station. So this next woman shared a story from the time her and her girlfriends went on a road trip together. It was around 10 at night and they needed to stop for gas. Since they were young females, they looked for a well-lit and busy gas station to pull over to. Once they found one, they pulled over and the driver got out to fill the tank. But just as she started unscrewing the gas cap, an armed man with a gun and his crew surrounded her and shouted at her to get on the ground. That's when she realized it had been a trap. All the other cars at the gas station were empty. No one was driving them. They just positioned their cars there and waited until someone used the center pump. Thankfully, this girl was a quick thinker and the gunman wasn't that smart. She begged for her to go into the car and talk to her friends, and he let her. But as soon as she got in her car, she threw it in reverse and nearly ran the guys over. She then sped out of there so fast and never looked back. Coming in at number 7, we have the road psycho. So this next woman and her husband were driving on the highway late at night on their way home from a trip. There wasn't a lot of cars on the highway, so it was a pretty peaceful drive. That was until this old lady raced up beside them in the adjacent lane. She then started to merge into their lane and tried to ram them off the road. And it's not like she was some innocent old lady that just didn't see them. No, the whole time this was happening, she was staring right at them and smiling, like she purposely wanted to see them get into a car accident. That is one sick old lady.
Hey teachers, you may love Cami because its clever annotation tools make every resource engaging.
In our 6th spot, we have the close call. So this young woman took a road trip to Florida with her family. That's when they decided to pull over to get some dinner. They finished their meals and headed to their hotel. The next day during breakfast, they turned on the television and saw that a reporter was talking about the restaurant that they had just eaten at the previous night. Turns out that 10 minutes after they left, there was a huge gang fight that took place in the restaurant and a number of people were shot dead. Talk about a close call. Had they just been there for 10 minutes longer, they may not have been alive today. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the trailer. Honestly, while researching this topic, I found a number of stories of people getting followed by creepy men in trucks. So please, be careful out there. And be extra cautious if you're driving alone at night. So the story is basically about that. It was around 2 a.m. and a man was headed to his hotel with his wife. That's when he noticed that the truck behind him had been following him for quite some time. Growing paranoid, he put on his turning signals as if he was about to get off at the exit, and so did the truck. But he didn't get off at the exit. The truck continued to follow close behind, and copied his every move. That's when he decided to get off at the next exit and find a full parking lot to pull into. He pulled into it, parked beside another car, and switched off his lights. And what do you know? The truck came into the parking lot and made circles looking for them. After a couple of minutes, the truck finally leaves, and the man makes it safely to his destination. That's horrifying though. I don't even want to know what the driver's intentions were. In our 4th spot, we have the guardian angel. So according to this next Reddit user, her grandpa used to be a long-distance truck driver. So he would often drive long hours on unfamiliar roads. Well, one day he was driving down a single-lane country road. It was around 2 to 3 in the morning and the road was pitch black. Only his headlights were lighting up the road. Well, as he was driving, he felt a hand on his shoulder and a voice whisper his name in his ear. As soon as he heard this, he slammed on his brakes. And good thing he did. Seconds later, his headlights lit up a pile of 3 crashed cars that were blocking the entire road. He had just managed to escape the wreckage. Had he not braked when he did, he would have smacked right into the cars. Now, the reason he stopped was because he recognized the voice. It was the voice of his mom that passed away a few years previously. So she was looking out for him and saved him from getting into a terrible crash. Moving on at number 3, we have the end of the road. This story was shared by Reddit user Che Sarah. So this happened while she was driving from California to Ohio with her mom. They were driving at night on a lone road when all of a sudden her check engine light came on. So she stopped the car and got out. But when she did, she noticed the rest of the road was blocked off. The road just ended out of nowhere. It was under construction, and so the whole road was blocked off completely. Good thing that they stopped when they did, or else they would have crashed right into the construction zone. Not only that, they were in the middle of nowhere. There were no other cars or buildings or signs. So they just hopped back in the car and prayed that they would somehow find their way. Coming in at number 2, we have the flat tire. If you drive, here's your reminder to always carry a spare tire with you and make sure you know how to change a tire by yourself. So this next individual was driving from eastern Colorado to Wyoming. It was the middle of the night and they were alone on a dirt road. That's when they heard a loud bang. So it was their tire. It had popped. So he pulls over and gets out into the darkness. He begins changing his tire as fast as he can when he hears a man say, "Need any help with that?" Yeah, that's my impression of the man. He said it just like that probably. He spun around, but no one was standing there. He then grabbed his tire iron and started yelling out, "Who's out there?" But all there was dead silence. He finished putting on the tire and sped the heck out of there. I'm just glad that he didn't start walking around in the forest, trying to investigate. Because you all know that if this was a horror movie, that's what he would have done. And it would not have ended well for him. And in our number 1 spot, we have the ghost truck. So this next individual and her boyfriend were driving back home from a wedding. The trek home was about a 3-hour drive. The boyfriend had stayed sober as he was the designated driver. As they were driving along some dark country roads, they came across a truck headed directly at them. They both screamed as the bright headlights washed over them. He swerved the car to the side and nearly into a ditch. But when they looked behind them, there was nothing. No truck, no lights, no nothing. They were on a narrow country road. There was no way the truck could have went by them without smacking them. So what is it that they saw? They are convinced that it was a ghost truck. And turns out that years ago, a man lost his life after crashing head-on with a trucker who had gotten lost and went down the wrong way. So, that's pretty scary.
At number 10, we have tarantulas. This story comes from a trucker, and honestly, I am truly terrified. The trucker's daughter took to Reddit to explain that her mum had an experience during her life on the road. She said that one day she was driving through Arizona and she saw a whole load of leaves blowing across the road in the distance. She said that she was actually pretty confused as to why the road was covered in leaves, considering that it was surrounded by pine trees. Pine trees, famously piney, not leafy. When she got closer, however, she realized that the leaves were actually tarantulas. Oh my god. And yeah, not just one tarantula, not 2, but thousands of migrating tarantulas. No fun. She was unable to stop her truck suddenly, so unfortunately she had to drive over them. She did stop at the first available opportunity and found guts and legs caking the inside wheel well of the truck. Grim and terrifying. And grim again. Coming into number 9, we have the Woodsy Road Mountains. Sometimes when you are on a road trip, you come across scary things. Sometimes you stop to find out what the frog is going on. Other times, you just drive on. Personally, I would recommend driving on because you never know what could happen to you, especially when you're driving alone. This driver did drive on, but they did capture a photograph first. They posted the horrifying image on Imgur with the caption, "I was driving down a woodsy back road in the mountains when I saw something out of the corner of my eye." One commenter wrote, "So you stopped to take a picture, and now you're dead." Honestly, this is what I mean, never stop. The image has over 3,800 upvotes, and we're still none the wiser as to what was going on, but honestly, looking at that, it can't be good. Coming into number 8, we have the story of the green and white truck. This story was shared on Dazed Digital magazine by writer Emma Sutton. Emma wrote of a road trip that she, her mother and sister went on across Wyoming when she was 8. She remembered fondly that her mum loved piling her kids in the car and just hitting that open road. One time though, Emma remembers the drive being truly terrifying. The trio of girls were driving on some small and lesser known roads in Wyoming, and at one point they turned into a gas station. They happened to pull into the station after a truck, and as the two young girls and their mum were in the station, they used the restroom and filled up their car. The truck driver that pulled in before them must have seen them in the gas station and seemingly decided to start following them. The mum suspected as much and started feeling very nervous. Emma recalled her mum making a plan to pull over and then pretend to get out of the car at the next gas station. She told kids to sit tight with their seatbelts on and to stay in the car. Now, as she pulled off, the truck followed them. As the mum pretended to get out of the car, the driver of the truck got out too. Luckily, Emma's mum was only pretending to get out, and she then slammed her car door shut and absolutely floored it. She drove away at full speed. The truck driver was startled and watched the family the whole time. Now, Emma's mum sped down a road and turned very quickly at the next junction, hiding her car and her family down a very small road. From the car, they watched as minutes later the green and white truck came speeding down the road, seemingly after them. He didn't notice that their car was hidden down the side road. Emma's sister said that she needed to pee, and their mum agreed that she did too, although Emma recalls her saying, "I'd rather piss my pants in this car than be murdered on the side of this road." At a mum. Coming in at number 7.
Attention business owners. Have you received your ERC payroll tax rebate yet? If you had 3 or more employees during 2020 and 2021, you are eligible to receive up to $26,000 per employee in just 2 business days. We know how stressful it is to deal with the IRS, especially if you're not an expert. Most business owners are busy running their businesses, and they don't have time to file their claims. And that's where we come in. Our mission is to get your ERC claim filed and funded as quick.
7, we have the time travelers. In 1988, 2 businessmen were driving along Highway 167 near Lafayette in Louisiana. As they were driving, they came across a vintage car going really slowly, like really slowly. In the United States, old cars are restricted to as and when they're actually allowed to drive on the road. So the guy driving, who was on his lunch break and later gave his name to a magazine as LC, thought that maybe it was part of a weird midweek ceremonial parade. When he drove by the car, he noticed that the woman driving was wearing 1940s style clothing and was looking very stressed and confused. Elsie stopped to see if she needed help, and she nodded, looking like she was about to cry. As he drove up a little way down the road to park his car safely, he turned back around, only to see that her car was miraculously gone. Elsie and his business partner kept on driving, and they saw another really old car, with a newer car parked up in front. That car also then seemed to vanish, and Elsie decided to talk to the driver of the newer car, who seemed to have had a very similar experience. The trio of men were absolutely baffled and a little bit afraid. I think genuinely they thought they came across time travelers. Coming into number 6, we have Port Perry. The small Canadian town of Port Perry is located near Route 12. Now this runs up to Cottage Country and the Kawartha Lakes in Ontario. This also lays routes near down to Toronto in one direction and Ottawa in another. Basically, a lot of road trippers pass by or through this town. It seems that in the 1960s, a young man was testing the limits of a motorbike on an old road leading to Scugog Island. Sadly, he pushed too hard and lost control of his bike. The story goes that he came off his bike and hit his head on a rock. Others say that he was decapitated on a barbed wire fence. Either way, there is a rock in the area that has Ghost Rock graffitied on it. The legend goes that those who drive down the road after dark are likely to see a phantom motorbike, or perhaps even a headless motorcyclist. Some report seeing phantom headlights coming at them too. These days, people often take a road trip to specifically see the Ghost Rock and try and catch a glimpse of the spectre. This is one road you do not want to take a trip on. We have Death Road in Bolivia at number 5. The north youngest road in Bolivia has been nicknamed the Death Road. In 1995, the road was voted the world's most dangerous road, and in the past 20 plus years, it has certainly lived up to that accolade. Do you guys want to have a little look at it? Here it is, here are a few pictures. Whilst it does look very, very breathtaking, at the same time, I would not want to drive on it. There are varying reports on the danger of this road, with some suggesting that the yearly death toll is around 300 people. Others suggest that the road sees around 1,300 fatalities in a year. On July the 24th, 1983, around 100 people in a bus were killed as it plummeted down a